I'm Dr. Pervin Dadachanji. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist practicing in Mumbai. The pandemic has affected the mental health of almost everyone all over the world. But I think the two groups which it has affected the most is the elderly and the adolescent. So the adolescent has been affected the most because of loss of school and college. I think school is the most important aspect of the growing child's life because school gives you that interaction with others. School gives you the ability to play physical sport. School gives you your academic performance is so much better when you're attending physical school than what you are doing online. So that loss of connectedness with their peers has affected adolescents tremendously. And this has caused several mental health issues in them, which can range from just stress to anxiety to depression and also sometimes to suicidal thoughts. So the adolescent, to alleviate this anxiety of his, what does he do? He gets involved with gadgets. So one of the ways is to play games continuously, and that is a form of escapism also, and perhaps some connectedness with other friends who are playing the same games. And the other children go on to media, whether it's social media where they're interacting with their friends, or it is looking at what is happening in the world like today. And especially right now when the pandemic has reached some crazy proportions in our country, they are constantly being bombarded by oxygen required here, bodies collected in a graveyard, or there is a clamoring for hospital beds, there is grief all around, and that shakes them too, that makes them really very anxious. So as parents, what I would really advise parents to do is not to get too hooked on to the fact that their children are using gadgets a lot, but to just restrict the time that they are on gadgets, listening to all these awful stories of COVID. Social interactions are only happening online, so let children do that because they are not going to school, they are not interacting with their friends there, and online schooling doesn't give them any sense of connectedness. And other things, especially right now, what children are facing is grief. Grief because they have either lost a loved one or their friend has lost a loved one. They are just bombarded with these stories of loss. Like during the first lockdown, they dealt with the loss of normality, which was difficult, but they managed it. Now it is the loss of people. It can be grandparents. Now it is also parents and aunts and uncles, which is very difficult for adolescents to handle. So what do? Their normal way is to withdraw, to isolate, to not sleep, to use gadgets more, or they get very irritable and aggressive. These are all their ways of showing their grief. So as parents, to talk to the child about his grief, to understand the loss that he's feeling, and it may not be his direct loss, it may be his friends aren't expiring, but for the child he personalizes that to it could be my parent because everyone is the same age. So to validate our children at this time is very important, to understand their grief. Helping them to form a little remembrance thing, whether it's an album with photographs or writing a poem or talking to other people who have gone through the same kind of bereavement. If your child is feeling very sad and anxious, depressed or suicidal, it is a good idea to see a mental health professional. and do support groups. There are support groups for grief counseling, there are support groups for COVID anxiety, etc., and that would really help. If we don't treat the mental health of our children at this stage, it is going to go completely out of control later on after the pandemic, because the after effects of this can lead to this condition called post-traumatic stress disorder, which can affect the child in many ways for a longer period. So addressing anxiety, addressing depression right now with the help of either groups or individual therapy would definitely help your adolescent. Thank you.